we are entering into Dvaita to Advaita philosophy, the stage, because we actually worship in the temples. That is the Dvaita philosophy. And for this, Jivatma has to enter to Paramatman. That Advaita philosophy has to be followed. What are these stages, kindly?
You see, the Dvaita is a beautiful step to start. I have seen many people condemning Dvaita, condemning temple worship in the name of Advaita. Never condemn. The people who condemn Dvaita in the name of Advaita will not even meditate. They will be sitting and dozing. I have seen people condemning Advaita, condemning Dvaita, and not following the Advaita also. Dvaita is a beautiful step. Always use the first step. Really, when you have mastered the first step, then go to the second step. And one more thing, don't be stuck in the first step. That's one more thing. You see, the Dvaita is almost like a ladder. You must use it, but you should leave it also. You must use it, but you should leave it also. The danger is either we don't use at all, or we are stuck. It's like three disciples. They used a boat to cross the river. When they went that side, they said, this boat has helped us to cross the river. How can we leave this like this, leave this and go away? Let us carry this boat. All the three started carrying the boat and walking. Unnecessary. Either you don't use or you are stuck. Now, all you need to do is don't bother. Use properly. When time comes, have enough energy to leave. Have enough energy to go beyond, to experience the Advaita. I tell you one thing, when you are really honest, when you are honestly practicing Dvaita, the very divine energy itself guides you and it takes you towards the Advaita. It just guides you. That is why in my meditations, especially our healers, I want them, you should not meditate on my form. I always tell them, they cannot meditate on my form. They should never meditate on my form. They can only relate with the energy. And they can only fall into that energy. Because the form is sometimes, the form of the divine, or the master's form is so graceful, we tend to stuck with it. We are stuck. We don't go above. We don't go beyond. You must use and drop. It's like in India, to burn the dead bodies, they will use a big stick. They will use a big stick and nicely burn that body. After burning, they will throw that stick also into the fire. Same way, the master's form and the God's form is like that stick. This stick should be used to burn the attachment to all other forms. This form should be used as a stick to burn all the attachments to other forms. Once all the other forms and attachment to other forms are burned, you should throw this form also into that same fire and become enlightened. It's like a step. It's like a step. You should use it and go beyond it. That's a beautiful small story about this Dvaita Advaita. In India, big drama goes on, the fighting. The so-called pandits who don't want to experience, egoistic pandits, they have no other duty except eating and fighting. They open, the 24 hours their mouth will be open. Either they will be eating or fighting. 24 hours, that is the only job. From morning till night they will be fighting, whether Shankara or Ramanuja, Dvaita or Advaita. Fight goes on, goes on, goes on. From time immemorial, still it goes on. There was one bookshop at the Vedanta bookshop. One volunteer was standing. Actually, there was some conference about this Advaita, Dvaita. In that bookstall, there was a volunteer standing. Two books were there. The Brahma Sutra, commentary by Ramanuja and commentary by Shankara. Means Dvaita commentary and Advaita commentary. Somebody went and asked, "Sir, what is the difference between these two books?" The volunteer replied, 45 rupees. Actually, 45 rupees is the only difference. Nothing else. So be very clear. Follow any one thing, naturally you'll reach the other. That's all.
Before one experiences the enlightenment, does one have to have certain form of training or Vedic knowledge? Or
There is no need for Vedic knowledge, but the meditation training I feel is a basic need. There is no need for intellectual knowledge, but the meditation technique is basic need. You don't need to be completely trained in Vedas or Upanishads and all those things, but you must be a meditator. You must travel in the path. That's a basic thing.
Swamiji, if you're initiated by one master, can you be initiated again?
Surely. And I always tell people, at least my disciples, I tell them, go around and pluck flowers from all the gardens and make beautiful bouquet. Wherever you can, go and learn from everywhere. And I tell you, even if 1,000 people beat your ego will not die. How do you expect to destroy your ego just from one master? Go around and learn from all the corners. Wherever it is possible. Learn from all the possible places. And make a beautiful bouquet. At least all my system is liberated from me. For my meditations, if you have to achieve the successful result, my presence is not necessary, your presence is enough. So at least in my system, I liberate you all. I liberate all my people. I tell them, go around, learn from all possible sources. Enrich your life, whatever way you can. Pluck flowers from all the gardens and make a beautiful bouquet. And enjoy the life. Only thing, don't go to the people who says don't go to others. Because you will be stuck. Except that, go to all the possible places and learn from all possible sources and make your life blissful. That's all. And I tell you, really, real masters never contradict each other, they complement each other. If at all they contradict, understand someone is pseudo. Real masters never contradict each other, they always complement each other. Always they complement each other. If they are contradicting, be very clear, somebody is pseudo. It's a truth. It's the ultimate truth. These are some ultimate truths. And with this scale, you can measure.
Why should we be at war with our ego?
Why should
Why should we be at war with our ego?
why should we have a war with our ego? Of course, you don't have to have a war. Enjoy. If you enjoy your ego, you will be liberated. I tell you,
Looks like
if you really enjoy your ego, you will be liberated. No problem. If you live intensely or live totally, both the way you will become enlightened. But we don't do both perfectly, that is the problem. If you live intensely also, you will be liberated. If you live intensely, you will be liberated. Both the way you will be liberated. Either expand your ego, blow it to such a level it becomes God, or destroy it totally so that you become God. In any one way, either live intensely or live intensely. Either pamper your ego totally, completely, without any doubt. Just become one with it. Again you can become enlightened. I tell you. The Tantra, the path of Tantra is this is the path. Live intensely, you can become enlightened. Or live intensely, live totally, as I did. From the young age I fought, continuously meditated, became enlightened. Any one path. Choose any one. Either totally live or totally leave. But the problem is we are always in that dilemma. Swinging. This side to that side to this side. Night means your mood is different. Morning means your mood is different. Sometimes you fight with your ego. Sometimes you say, no, whatever I am doing is right. That is what I say, don't do. Anyone, stay with any one side, you will simply be liberated. Dilemma is the only enemy. A dilemma is the thing which keeps you away from enlightenment. If you can drop that, simply you will be liberated. Simply you can be liberated.
Swami, what happens to people, enlightened people after enlightenment? What is the experience after that? Is the same thing, or is that the end, or is that the beginning?
You can neither say it is an end nor say it is the beginning, or you can say it is the end and beginning. It's the end in a way because the whole past disappears. It's the beginning in a way because a new dimension of consciousness opens. First thing. And yesterday I think I spoke, there are few symptoms about enlightenment. It brings you a tremendous joy and ecstasy, and all the doubts and the insecure feelings disappear, and the feeling of separateness disappears, and you feel so homely with this whole universe. Above all, you completely trust the existence that it is supporting you, it is backing you. Instead of continuously fighting with it, you relax into it. And one thing, whether you believe it or not, realize it or not, accept it or not, you are enlightened. You have only one choice. You can fight, continuously fight, swim against the current and make your life hell. Or just flow with the current, enjoy and make your life heaven. But whether you swim against the current or along with the current, you are in water. Whether you swim against the current or along with the current, you are in water. Whether you don't realize or realize, you are enlightened. You have one choice. You can realize and express that joy. Or you can just go on fighting with yourself and continue to make your life hell. That's all. When you really experience it, all fight disappears. Such wonderful settledness descends on you, that stillness, that silence and bliss happens to you. I can say cool, that's all. It's really cool, that's all. Nothing else can be told.
One more follow-up question to that. Do you need to contemplate again?
No, nothing. Actually, we don't need to do anything. After that experience, no need for meditation, nothing. See, somebody asked Ramakrishna, even if you once clean that pot, the brass pot has to be continuously cleaned. Only then it will be shining. Ramakrishna says, the moment you become enlightened, you become gold pot. You don't need any cleaning, any shining. You just self-shine, self-effulgence. Sutta Swayam Prakasa. Pure and self-effulgent. You become self-effulgent. You don't need to do anything. You don't accumulate anything. Nothing touches you. Just you go around like a flower. I tell you one thing honestly. Whatever now I say, it will be more or less like a story only. If you are really sincere and a seeker, try to be around me for a few days. Try to be around me through some program, some method, some way. You will just simply see what I am speaking is truth. You will simply see what I am speaking is truth. You can simply see what I am speaking is an experience. But till that happens, it will be just one more novel, fiction novel. You read so many fiction novels. One more fiction novel. Either you will doubt, maybe he is telling a story, or even if you believe, it will be only one more fiction novel for you. When you try to live around me, spend some time around me, then you will really understand or experience what I say is solid truth. It is experience, possible. Then you will be able to understand how it happens or how he lives.
I have one question, Swami. Most of the wars happen because of religious and race. What are your thinking about that?
That's a beautiful question.
What's the question? Can you repeat that?
Most of the wars happen because of religions and race. I think I answered this question yesterday. Okay, it's okay. I'll answer. When you catch the personality instead of principle, then starts the trouble. If you catch the Gita, you will never have a trouble. Gita, Bible, Quran, Zen Avastha, Zen scriptures, Dhammapada, all says the same thing. Love all, serve all. Love thyself, love thy neighbors as you love thyself. Every scripture, every principle says peace and love. If you catch the principle, there is no problem. But the moment you catch Krishna, or Christ, or the personalities, then starts the whole trouble. See, the name Ayodhya Ayodhya means where there is no war. Yuddha means war. Ayodhya means where there is no war. What Rama would have fantasized when he kept that name for his city? He would have fantasized naturally a place where there will be no war, peace. Because throughout his life, he is totally disturbed and depressed. Throughout his life, he never lived peacefully. Major portion of his life is spent in the forest and fighting with Vali, then fighting with these Rakshasas, then fighting with Ravana. Continuously war. Finally he thought, let my place become a peaceful place, and he named it as an Ayodhya. But now the Rama's followers, what they are doing? Now that is the biggest place for Yuddha. So when you catch the personality instead of principle, the whole thing starts. So all we can do is start working on the principle, not on personality. Start experiencing Krishna consciousness. Start experiencing Christ consciousness. Start experiencing Buddhahood. Start experiencing the Shiva consciousness. Instead of boasting, I am the Shiva's disciple, I am a Christian, I am a Buddhist, or I am a Hindu, start experiencing the consciousness of Shiva, consciousness of Christ, consciousness of Buddha. The whole problem will be solved. It's like there was a big pond. 4 guys were going to the pond to drink water. And they were walking, they started discussing, they started talking with each other. One guy says, I am going there to drink water. The other guy says, no, water is not there, only pani is there. Third guy says, no, only tanni is there. Not water, not pani. Fourth guy says, no, it is Nilu. My grandfather only made that lake, I know. Second guy says, no, my father every day used to go there, I know. The other guy says, no, the land belongs to my forefathers. I know it is only pani. All the four started fighting. They did not even have a little bit of patience to go and see. On the way itself they started fighting, beating each other. Finally all the four killed each other and died. Before reaching the pond, they killed each other and all the four died. If they had a little bit of patience to at least peep into that pond, they would have understood, all the four is one and the same. It's only 4 different languages, 4 different words. It is just one and the same. But these guys don't have that much of patience to go and see. They wanted to fight before seeing. They wanted to fight before experiencing. Then whole thing starts and all the 4 fight and kill each other. Finally the global suicide. Be very clear. If you are not going to meditate, if you are not going to create pure, peaceful and blissful consciousness, if you are not going to work for global peace and blissful consciousness, all we are going to do is global suicide. Because the time has come. So much of atomic weapons. I read a website and read on statistics. The atomic weapons filed by all the countries in the planet Earth, declared, I'm not saying about the undeclared weapons, declared weapons can burn the planet Earth 700 times. 700 times you can destroy the planet Earth. Not 1 time or 2 times. 700 times you can destroy the planet Earth. So much of atomic weapons are piled. Understand? Either we meditate and create a global peaceful consciousness or global suicide. Get ready for something. Yes.
In thousands of years of the Guru system,
Thousands of years
of the Guru system in India.
Sorry.
Guru system.
Guru system, yes.
systems in India. Why did it take Gandhi to modify or to attack the caste system? I mean, what did the Gurus
That's
do?
a nice question. Till Gandhi, the system was working perfectly. At that time only it is degraded. The time for replacing has come. So the system has to be replaced. The system has rotten. See, for a long time the system was useful. I tell you one thing. Just because some mistakes happened in the system, we can't blame the very system itself. Be very clear. First thing, the caste system was not created based on birth. It is created based on the karma. Means the way in which they think and do activities. Gita says very clearly, it is not based on your father, mother. It is based on your attitude towards the life. It is based on attitude towards the life. If you are ready to dedicate your life just for wisdom and intelligence, to do the research in the spiritual field, you are called Brahmana. If you are spending your life in doing business, you are called Vaishya. If you are spending your life to take care of the country, you are called Kshatriya. If you are spending your life assisting these three categories, you are called fourth category. I tell you, nobody is higher and nobody is lower. It was only category. I tell you one more thing. At least the rishis have categorized people based on intelligence and attitude. The modern day society is categorizing people based on money, which is very dangerous. You enter into the aircraft, executive people, how they look at you? Tell me, it's community. Again the caste system, but in a very dangerous way. They look at you just like untouchables. Enter into the aircraft, when you cross the executive class or the first class, go to the business class, go to the economic class, how the first group looks at you? Almost untouchables. You understand?
No, how can any baby be untouchable? How can any newborn child
of course,
do anything
of
other than
course.
the potential to be
Surely the original system did not say anybody is untouchable, and original system never said somebody is higher and somebody is lower. Please be very clear. The history is written by the Western philosophers or Western historians totally destroys and gives a wrong image about the whole Indian culture. I tell you, surely it is not thousands of years crisis. I can be sure of one thing. The original system was created to make the society more comfortable. And the next thing, when the degradation started happening, whenever the degradation happened, always there was counter power. There are 63 Saiva saints in Tamil Nadu. They are role models, supposed to be the social role models. They are from all the four community, and the fourth community is majority. The fourth community people are chosen in a majority level to participate in that 63 Saiva saints. And always they are respected. And one more thing, whenever the degradation happened, again and again many voices are raised. Gandhi's voice was heard all over the world, that's all. Before that there was no TV, there was no internet. When the people raised their voice, there was no way it was broadcasted. In the Gandhi's time, it reached all over the world, that's all. Otherwise, I can tell one thing, the system was created surely for good purpose, and it did some good thing. When the degradation started happening, naturally we discarded it, that's all.
You think it's discarded today?
Surely. Because I went to village. I traveled in India 9 years walking village to village. I can be sure at least the discrimination part is discarded. I can be sure discrimination part is discarded. And everybody is coming up. Everybody is coming up. People are taking their own time to come up. But at least the discrimination part, the different temple, all these things are totally eradicated. Because I travel every village to village. Surely it is discarded. Yes. I am not defending, but I can be sure, from my experience I can be sure it is discarded. Of course, when you want to find fault, you can always find fault. You can find fault and then tell me honestly, which country doesn't have racism? Which country doesn't have racism? Yes. So we can't generalize. But I can be sure of one thing, much development has happened. Much is developed. Much is developed and much is clear. Because I lived in the Indian villages. Every village to village I traveled. So I can be sure that a temple and the equal rights, all these things are being now cleared. So maybe everyone is growing, everybody is growing. And one more thing, whenever a big social structure is created, always there will be one or two flaws. See, we have to generalize, you see. When they create the generalized rules, naturally there will be one or two flaws, one or two problems. But just because of the one or two problems, we can't say the whole system is wrong. I can tell you one thing, understand this one line, this one thing, I can be sure, whatever is said and done, that country has survived with that system for last 5,000 years. 5,000 years the system has survived, and still people are alive, still not even 1% of the country takes depression medication. I have seen the developed countries, 66%. I tell you, the statistics says 66%. I was shocked. In the higher developed countries, 66% of the people take depression medication. And it is not that in India medicine is not available. Now everything is available. Now food and the medicine is available all over the country. But the system is somehow, the system and the lifestyle teachings are somehow avoiding the depression. And really, see, of course, I am not defending, I am stating the fact. Please don't mind, I don't want to offend you. I don't mean like hurting you, but I am telling you the few facts, few truths. There are flaws, there are problems in every system. But just because of these few flaws, I don't think the rishis have done a complete mistake. The rishis who created the system surely were intelligent than at least me. At least they are intelligent than us. So I can be sure of one thing, they have done a service. They have done a very big service, and their system is not a failure. Maybe outdated. See, outdated can never be said as a failure. When the softwares get updated, the old softwares get outdated. But just because it is outdated, we can't say that software is failure. For that time, it was useful. Now we have little more intelligence, updated intelligence. Now we have updated it and outdating that. So surely I can say, for that time, for that style, for that development, that the system has helped. That system has worked. Of course, now we need to update. That's the truth. We need to update, and we are outdating. Yes. Yes.
Except from what you say, meditation is the path to God, but there are other paths like Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and everything. And they can also reach God without having to do the meditation technique
Yes.
that you have been.
That's wonderful. That's a nice question. Can I ask you one thing? Is it your conclusion or your question?
That's a question to you.
Ah.
There are some other paths to God besides meditation.
See, all the paths are available. When the meditation is added, to those paths, it can quicken the result. It can take you intensely, it can reach that same thing. You can reach that goal very quickly. Whether it is bhakti, you see, one thing I tell you, bhakti without meditation becomes almost like an emotional wave. Just singing and dancing, nothing else. The jnana without meditation just becomes intellectual exercise. The karma without meditation becomes nothing but workaholic. Work. When the meditation is added, the juice is added in all the other paths. Of course, Raja Yoga is nothing but meditation. So all the four paths, I tell you, when the meditation is added, life is added. The juice is added. When the meditation is not there, it's almost just dry, or the juice is not there. So I tell you, meditation surely intensifies and takes you to the goal in a very fast or deeper way. Of course, fasting is not necessary. Once in a month, I always recommend people, once in a month, one day give rest to your body. Give a holiday, vacation. Just as a, this I am not prescribing this as a spiritual discipline, this as a discipline for your health. Try to take one day off from your routine. That's the thing I recommend. Otherwise, from my experience, I don't feel I'm not able to connect the fasting and the spiritual practices. You don't need. If you can eat in a moderate way, that's enough. Otherwise, I have seen people fasting for one day and eating next day for 3 days together. 3 days food, they finish. Instead of that, better eat always in a moderate way, that's enough. Otherwise, I am not able to relate directly the fasting and the spiritual practice. I tried many experiments, many things. Fasting is not directly related to spiritual growth. Yes.
Swami, regarding karma, let's say that I have a negative thought, but I don't take action on that thought. Will my result be mental or physical? Like, will mental thought will have mental result, or can a mental thought have a physical effect?
I tell you, surely the thought plays a major role. Thought is more powerful than action itself. When somebody does a negative action without the negative intention, even that will be forgiven, even that will not have an impact. But the negative thought, even if it is not supported with action, plays a major role on your system. Plays a very major role on your system. And you may not actualize it with your activity, but the very thought creates an effect. So I tell you, you have to be careful, more careful about your thinking system than your actions. It doesn't mean that you can do anything in action, that is different. But your thoughts are more powerful than action. See, the thoughts can express on somebody else also. Your intense thought can inspire somebody else to do the action. Your body may not do, but other bodies may do. And you don't know the power of thoughts. You don't know the power of thoughts. The power of your thoughts, even if you don't actualize it, the other person can actualize it, may catch it. Thoughts are very infectious. The other persons can be infected by the thought and start doing it. So you have to be very careful with the thoughts. Yes.
You know, your comments about enlightenment. Now, one thing I feel hard is that if you're doing 24/7 enlightenment, morning to evening, fully in enlightenment probably is much easier. But when you're doing part-time enlightenment, go to work, suddenly you're unenlightened. Right? How do you then continue the momentum?
See, when a person is enlightened, it is never partly. It is only full-time job. Enlightenment is never given as a part-time job. It is only full-time job. And one more thing, when a person becomes enlightened, 24 hours he works without tiredness. If at all you can find time, just try to be around me. You can see 22 hours I am spending with the public. 22 hours I am spending with public. You see my routine. 22 hours average I spend with people. I am sitting, working somewhere or other. Somewhere or other, some work is happening. When you are really enlightened, you will work intensely. Work can never be a distraction. And nothing can be a distraction. I tell you, your personality becomes whole. When you are whole, you are holy. One more thing, we always have this big conflict, whether horizontal line or vertical line. Horizontal line means this social life or outer world, the normal life. Vertical line means spiritual life. Whether this life or this life, we always have a conflict. I tell you, you don't have to choose between this life and this life. As long as you think you are a mind, you think you can travel only in this line or in this line. I tell you, you don't have to choose. You can just explode in all the directions. Not only in this direction and this direction. You don't have to choose between this and this. You can travel at a time in this and in this, both quantum. And you can explode in all the directions. As long as you believe you are a mind, you will have the dilemma of whether this or this. You are, first of all, you are not mind. simply drop the idea, should I choose this or this, and start living intensely, you will see you will be exploding. You will be at a time traveling in this and in this both. You will be making your money and entering into meditation.
And cops will not catch you.
Sure. I tell you, sure. You will be a Buddha and Birla. Buddha. I tell you one important thing. See, when you go deeper and deeper, these conflicts disappear. The conflicts appear only in the superficial level. The deeper layers, never the conflicts appear. These are all very preliminary level questions. When you start going inside, you understand you can explode in all the directions. Everything becomes intense, whether it is physical health or mental health or economical wealth or social relationships or spiritual growth. You explode in all the directions. I always tell people, either you grow in all the directions or you don't grow in any direction. There is no question of growing in one direction and not growing in the other direction. It means there is something wrong in you. When you grow spiritually, you grow socially. And this explosion, from time immemorial, this conflict exists, whether this path or this path. All the spiritual people, they feel guilty, oh, I missed that. All these so-called social people, they feel guilty that I missed the other thing. And I tell you, whenever you choose, you always choose wrong way. All choices are wrong choices. All choices are wrong choices. If you choose spirituality, even that is wrong. When you are really growing, you explode. You grow in all directions. Just drop the idea you are supposed to choose. First thing, start living intensely in every field. That's all. These two will totally mold you. Small story. One American guy was traveling in London with an elderly British gentleman and woman, old lady. They had a pet dog. The pet dog suddenly jumped on him and pissed. This lady, instead of apologizing, she took that pet dog and, oh, what happened to you? She started petting the pet dog. Instead of apologizing him, she started petting the pet dog. What happened to you? I don't know. I think I have to take care of you. After 10 minutes, again this dog jumped. And now you know what you would have done. Did something much worse. Again this lady, instead of apologizing, she took the dog, started petting. Oh, I think you have bad stomach. I should do something to you. I should give some medicine. I should take you to the doctor. What happened to you? I don't know. After 10 minutes, again this dog jumped and vomited on him. Now it is too much. This guy simply took the dog and threw out of the window. All this time, this elderly gentleman, British gentleman, he was keeping quiet. Now he stood up and started speaking. You fools, you drive in the wrong way, measure with wrong scales. Now you threw the wrong bitch out of the window. So, whenever you choose, you always choose wrong. Be very clear. You always choose wrong way. All our choices are wrong. Whether it is horizontal or vertical. Just explode. You can grow in all the directions. Yes.
May I then ask a follow-up question? What do you feel is the role of fear? And do you think that we don't move towards enlightenment because of either perceived or real fear?
One thing, there is no such thing as a real fear. It is all perceived fear. The real fear cannot be mentioned by the word fear. It will be totally different. It will be a protecting mechanism. The real fear is always protecting mechanism. Till you become enlightened, your body can't be destroyed. So you need some protecting mechanism. That's the real fear. Real fear is totally different. But whatever we know in the name of fear is perceived fear only. It's just because of the perceived fear only we don't enter into enlightenment. And one more thing, we can't afford to have such beautiful bliss. Bliss is too much for us. Bliss is really too much. And that is the reason we don't sit with ourselves. We can sit with everybody, but we can't sit with ourselves. Because the silence or the voice of your inner being is too much. It is just because of fear we don't enter into the enlightenment zone. And you lose your pace when you enter into that zone. That's where the trouble starts. I think I almost dealt all the important points of God.com. Now I have to only put everything in line. The way I very clearly explained, exploding, not choosing. When you choose, you only grow in a particular, not even grow, you just choose only one part. Never choose, never be part, just be whole. When you are whole, you are holy. That's a path. When you reach, what happens? I explained already. You experience a deep bliss or the ultimate ecstasy, a continuous ecstasy. Above all, the importance, the need to enter. If you don't enter into this site, if you don't enter into this space of peace and bliss, we are going to enter into the global suicide. So, the path and the where we are going to end, the goal and the necessity to travel in the path, all the three are very clearly explained. Now it is our time to travel, enter into this site and enjoy the eternal bliss. I pray to the ultimate energy to give us the experience. Let us be in one with became eternal bliss, Nityananda. Thank you.